All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are tackling what might just be the holy grail of battery technology, the solid-state battery. I mean, for years, this has been the stuff of legends, right? The thing that's supposed to completely revolutionize the game for, well, everything, from our electric cars to our phones. And just look at these promises. We're talking about an EV with a range of over 1,000 kilometers, a 10-minute fast charge, a battery that has basically zero fire risk, because you're swapping out that flammable liquid for a solid. And on top of all that, it lasts way longer. Seriously, it sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? So that leads to the big question, right? The whole point of this explainer. If this battery is so perfect, then where is it? Why is it one in your car or your phone right now? What's the holdup? To find the answer, we have to zoom in. And I mean way in. We're going from those big, shiny promises to the tiny, microscopic monsters that are holding this entire revolution back. So challenge number one is something scientists call interfacial resistance. Now think about it like this. In a normal battery, you've got a liquid that just kind of sloshes around and perfectly coats the electrodes. It makes a flawless connection. But with solid state, you're trying to press two solid things together and get them to touch perfectly everywhere. That is a huge engineering challenge. Any microscopic gap, any tiny imperfection, and it's like a traffic jam for energy. It just chokes the flow.
All right, next up, volume expansion. As a battery charges and discharges, the stuff inside actually breathes. It swells up and then it shrinks back down. In a liquid battery, that's no big deal. The liquid just moves around. But in a solid-state battery, that's a whole different story. This constant flexing in a rigid structure creates these incredible internal stresses that can literally crack the battery and tear it apart from the inside.
And here's why that's such a massive problem. To get that insane energy density everyone wants, they're looking at silicon for the anode. But here's the catch. The graphite we use today expands by about 10%. Manageable. Silicon, on the other hand, expands by a mind-blowing 300% every single time you charge it. Just try to imagine containing that. It's an absolutely brutal amount of force for any solid material to handle. And then there's the silent killer. These are called lithium dendrites. They're these tiny, wicked sharp spikes of metal that literally grow through the solid electrolyte. Think of it like a stubborn root breaking through solid concrete. If one of these spikes makes it all the way to the other side, boom, you get a short circuit and the battery fails, catastrophically. Stopping these things is priority number one for pretty much every researcher in the field.
So how in the world do you solve all these problems? Well, it really all comes down to the electrolyte. And right now, scientists are in this massive race to build the perfect one. It's basically a showdown between two totally different approaches.
Okay, so in one corner, you've got ceramic electrolytes. These things are hard, they're stable, and they're amazing at moving ions super fast. The downside? They're brittle. They can crack under all that pressure. And in the other corner, you have these soft, flexible polymer electrolytes. They're great because they stay in contact with the electrodes, and they're way easier to make. But they are painfully slow at moving ions. It's a classic trade-off, speed versus flexibility.
And I'm not kidding about the speed difference. The difference in performance is just staggering. A really good ceramic electrolyte can be literally thousands of times more conductive than a polymer one. For the little lithium ions trying to get through, that's the difference between a 6-lane superhighway and a tiny, gridlocked alleyway. So the choice is obvious, right? Just use the ceramic. Case closed.
Well, not so fast. See, some clever researchers had an idea. What if we just mix them together? Make a composite, try to get the best of both worlds. But as this quote shows, nobody really knew what would happen. And that's when this whole story took a completely unexpected turn.
See, everyone assumed the super fast ceramic bits would be the hero here, doing all the work. But they were totally wrong. It turns out, in these new composite materials, the slow, unassuming polymer was the secret weapon all along. Get this, even when they mixed it with ceramic particles that couldn't conduct ions at all, the polymer itself suddenly became a superconductor. Its performance just skyrocketed. It was this huge aha moment that nobody saw coming.
So here's the crazy science behind it. The ceramic filler is basically acting like a disruptor. It just gets in the way. It physically stops the long polymer chains from lining up and crystallizing, which is what usually creates a traffic jam for the ions. By breaking up that structure, it creates more empty space, what they call free volume, and opens up these brand new super fast lanes right at the border between the polymer and the ceramic.
So in this wild twist, the ceramic isn't the road, it's the thing that forces the polymer to build its own superhighway.
Okay, so solving the crazy microscopic science is amazing, but that's really only half the battle. Now comes the really hard part, taking this stuff out of the lab and figuring out how to actually manufacture it. We're talking millions of batteries at a global scale and doing it cheaply and reliably.
And yeah, the biggest roadblock, without a doubt, is just the cost. I mean, look at this. The batteries we have now are somewhere around 100, maybe 150 bucks per kilowatt hour. The early solid-state prototypes, we're hearing estimates of $400 to $800. That is a gigantic price gap to close. So you gotta ask, why so expensive? Well, it's kind of a perfect storm, a triple threat. First, some of the raw materials you need are just incredibly pricey. Second, you can't just use the old lithium-ion factories. Nope, you have to build brand new, super specialized, and very, very expensive factories from scratch. And third, even when you have the new factory, the process is so tricky that your success rate, what they call the yield, is just terrible.
How terrible. Well, right now, the estimated yield is hovering around a dismal 30%. Let that sink in. That means for every 10 batteries they try to make, 7 of them end up in the trash. 7! You just can't run a business like that at scale. It's totally unsustainable. And to really put that in perspective, a mature, normal battery factory today runs at a yield of 95% or even higher. So they need to close that gap between 30 and 95%. That's not a little tweak. That is one of the biggest manufacturing mountains this industry has ever had to climb. All right, so with all these challenges, both in the lab and on the factory floor, what's the real timeline here? When are we actually going to see these things in cars we can buy? Okay, so it seems like the whole industry is kind of circling the same dates. We should start seeing the first demo cars, the show-off models, in 2025. But the year everyone is watching is 2027. That's the turning point. That's when big names like Toyota and CATL are hoping to start small-scale production. Then Nissan's aiming for 2028 to launch their first EV. But for the rest of us, widespread availability and lower prices, that's probably not happening until 2030 or even later. So, the technology is coming, and it's coming pretty soon. But I love this quote from a report that really just nails it. There's a huge difference between being able to buy something and being able to afford it. And make no mistake, at first, this is going to be a luxury item. You're only going to see it in the super high-end premium EVs. We're talking about a battery pack that could add tens of thousands of dollars to the car's price. I mean, some estimates say the battery alone could cost $70,000. That's more than a whole new car for most people. Which brings us to our final thought, a real head-scratcher. We are right on the edge of this massive battery revolution, but making it affordable for everyone is still a long way off. So here's the question for you. Knowing that this incredible tech is just over the horizon, does it make sense to wait to buy your next car? Or is the best technology you can actually get your hands on today still the smart play? That really is the billion-dollar question, isn't it?